Hey, my name is Gary Mendel, and I'm the senior pastor at Harbor Light, and I've been serving in that role for 16 years, and we are so excited about where we're going in this small group campaign.
Hello everyone, welcome to week 3 where we are going to talk about caring for and supporting each other. My name is Mark Fila and I am so thrilled to be able to join you all on this journey. Proud of you all for making it this far in our small group campaign. A few weeks left, but I hope you are enjoying it so far. When we talk about, or when we think about caring for and supporting each other, it sounds great. And we all know that we need that. We need people to care for us and we need people to support us. But it's really hard to actually figure out how to make that happen sometimes. But sometimes I also think we can really overcomplicate it and it's also much more simple than we think. When I think about care and support, I really think of 3 things. The first thing is that none of us are more powerful or impactful alone than we are together. A team is always better than someone by themselves. We really need people to spur us forward to make the most happen. The second thought that I have when it comes to caring for and supporting each other is we need help to connect with God. To really deeply, authentically connect with God, we have to do that in relationship because God is a God of relationship. And when we come around each other and when we help each other connect with God, it is a real and deep experience. The second thing I think of is the story of Moses in the Bible. He has to raise his hands to heaven because he is on the top of a mountain watching the Israelites in battle. And every time he raises his hands in an effort of worship to God, the Israelites start winning the battle. And every time he gets tired and his hands come down, the Israelites start losing. Now we talk about having our hands raised to God often at Harbor Light, and we really refer to it as the universal sign of surrender. God, I am yours. God, whatever you want, I worship you. I am here for you. Now, when Moses would get tired, his arms would fall, and he realized, I can't hold my arms up enough, so I actually need help. So he called some of his friends. They held his arms up to God. And when his friends held his arms up, the Israelites continued to win. So they would kind of take turns of holding up Moses' hands. Moses needed his friends to help him connect with God, just like we do. We need our friends to help keep our arms extended up towards heaven to say, God, I'm yours. God, I want to be in relationship with you. We need help. The third thing I think of is person-to-person relational love actually is a doorway to God's love. Now, all love is divine love. The true rooted love, unconditional love is from God. We as people, we can tap into that sometimes. We're not always perfect. We mess up in our love a lot. But we can love people. And here's the catch. When we love people, we actually make God's love at least believable. Because there could be such a strong human love from person to person, God's unconditional love actually kind of might make sense. Now, I wanted to read a quote from David Benner. He's one of my favorite authors, and it's from the book called Surrender to Love. Genuine love always calls us to deeper places of trust and connection. Even the love exchange between people and their pets has health-inducing potential. It is not the pet that is the cause of the benefit, but the presence of divine love. Divine love that exists as a reflection of the nature of God and is present in human beings as we bear his image. While human love can never bear the weight of our need for divine love, it can support the transformation and teach us about divine love. Human love communicates divine love. Now, sadly, the flip side is also true. If we do a bad job as people, loving people, and we don't love people well, and we don't care for them well, and we don't support them, it actually makes God's unconditional love unbelievable for some people. And there's a lot of work to do with that, but it's very hard to conceive that God could actually be good if we haven't even experienced full human love. One of my favorite passages in the Bible is found in Philippians 2. So go ahead and turn now to Philippians chapter 2. We're going to read verses 1 through 5. But I love what this passage has to say about challenging us to care for each other and to support each other. So let's read it. Is there any encouragement from belonging to Christ? Any comfort from his love? Any fellowship together in the Spirit? Are your hearts tender and compassionate? Then make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another, and working together with one mind and purpose. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out for only your own interests, but take interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. So how do we have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had? I mean, that's when I hear that, I'm like, oh my goodness, that sounds almost impossible. Or actually, that does sound impossible. How do we have that? And I truthfully think it starts in one place. I think it starts with an understanding of God's grace. We are lovable. We are worthy of his love only because of who he is. Not because of all the things, the amazing things that I've done or you've accomplished, but because of who he is and what he did and how he created me and you. God's grace is the same for everyone because he loves everyone the same. So if we can understand that we aren't who we are without God's grace, we aren't worthy of his love without God's grace, if we can understand that and come from a baseline of all being on the same playing field, we can care for and love and support each other a lot better. If I start thinking that I'm better than you, or you start thinking that you're better than me, it's going to be really hard for either of us to care for each other or to support each other. I really think that understanding God's grace is where it starts. So if you have a hard time caring for people or thinking of other people first, or maybe you feel like you're a really selfish human being, which we all are, but maybe you really feel like that's a part of your life, well, I would ask, how do you understand God's grace for you? If we understand God's grace, then we can do the two things that I think are the most important in caring for and supporting each other. One is listening, and the second is being non-judgmental. They kind of go hand in hand. Let me give you a short little tip here. And it really caught me by surprise about 2 years ago when I first heard this. But there's a phrase that we say often in our culture and in our language that if we say it, it basically means we were being pretty judgmental and we weren't really listening. But I found myself saying it all the time. And that phrase is at least. So if someone shares a story with you, they share something where maybe they need some care or maybe they need some support. And you say, well, at least you're married. Or, well, I know you're having financial problems, but at least you have a lot of money, so you're going to be okay. Or, well, I know your parents are fighting and it's hard for you, but at least your parents are still together. That phrase, at least, is a very judgmental, condescending term that if you are the one who shared that now heard someone say at least to you, you know they weren't really listening and they didn't really have your best interest in mind. Really, they were just comparing you to themselves or their story. So let's stay away from saying at least. Let's just listen. Let's say, hey, this is what I heard you saying. Is that accurate? that's great listening. It's also very non-judgmental. So if we understand God's grace, we can listen well to care, and we can be non-judgmental, which is also very supporting. Lastly, I just want to share a little bit of a personal story. I was a part of a group for 3 years recently. In this group, we really had to dive into what were our motivations, who were we as leaders, who did God create us to be, all sorts of things. And it brought up a lot of hard things. And really, what I ended up finding out, about that middle period, maybe a year and a half in, was for me to really grow and for me to feel the care and the support that I wanted to feel from them. I had to allow myself to be cared for and to be supported. So I really had to present my full self. I had to say, this is what's going on in my life. This is what feels really hard. And truthfully, this is where I really need you to care for me right now. And I had to be brutally honest. And that was really hard for me to do. But once I learned that, once I got past the embarrassment of that, or even sometimes the shame of saying the things that I felt like I needed support in, then my friends or my colleagues that were in this group with me were able to actually care for me and support me in the ways in which I needed. So that leads me into kind of giving the questions or the assignments that you all have for today for your small group discussion. One, I want you to go around the circle and ask each other, how are you feeling? No, like really, how are you feeling? Maybe it's right now, or maybe it's how have you been feeling for the last month? But how are you feeling? And everyone, please listen, and please be non-judgmental, and please don't say at least. Secondly, after you ask each other how you're feeling, I want you to ask each person, how can we care for you and support you? Now, this is a hard question to answer. It really is. But I challenge you all to do that here. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad we were able to get through week 3 together. Can't wait to see you all for next week 4, which is titled Outreach. That's going to be really fun. But have a great discussion, and we'll see you next week.